Good evening, everyone. We'll call our meeting to order. If everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everyone. Welcome to our second Budget and Finance Committee meeting to review the 2019-2020 General Fund budget. Last time we met was the month of March. It's been nearly 2 full months. We have made a lot of progress, which we would like to share with you this evening. But before we get to some updates, our May meeting is typically our review of our staffing. And with that, I will pass the microphone over to Trish Crump to review our staffing projections for 1920.
Where's the clicker? Oh. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. We're going to start off our first slide with our projected enrollment. This is a slide that we do as a continuous motion of where everything is, where we've been. This year has kind of proven to be different in the past years. If you look at the last 5 years, our trend has been going down. And for the 18-19 school year, we are very happy to say that the trend went up. We did have advanced enrollments this year, especially in our kindergarten classes. So that's something new and positive, and we're hoping that that will continue for the next year. Currently, when you look at our numbers for the 1920 year, it does look a little bit down, but that's due to kindergarten enrollment. We did have kindergarten enrollment last week, and next week we will be having kindergarten screening. So if you have a student who needs to be in kindergarten and you have not registered them yet, we do ask that you call Patty Jovanovich at Central Administration at 412-373-5705 to schedule an appointment. She is scheduling for the screenings. That's the first part that you want your student to be involved in. Even if you've not completed the enrollment process, we want to get them started off correctly. So if you can give her a call, we'll get you scheduled in for next week. Any questions on enrollment? Administration has been working on staffing for the past several months. It's a fluid process. It changes continually based on enrollment, based on schedule changes. During the whole process, we were mindful of our budget, where we are in the budget. Mr. Schott kept us apprised at all times. So with that all in mind, we are making the following recommendations. The next slide will show, for our professional staff, we are asking to increase 0.5 ESL. We have been looking at, due to the increase in students identified as English language learners, we feel that we would benefit from an additional half-time ESL teacher. This would allow us to have 3.5 teachers to serve our students throughout the district. That money, we do have title money that we possibly could take that from, but again, it's something that we feel that is beneficial to the students. We're requesting 2 positive behavior intervention specialists. These positions would require special education certification with a preferred background in behavior management. Because these are going to be special education positions, we will be able to utilize our access funds to pay for those positions. Looking at the building levels in elementary, with the increase in kindergarten this year, we will be transferring those new kindergarten positions that we added into the first grade. Oops, my slide stopped. So those will be moving from kindergarten to first grade for CSE and Ramsey. Looking at the current enrollment in kindergarten for Evergreen, we do not feel that we need that continued kindergarten teacher there, so we'll be able to absorb that. Special education at Ramsey, we feel that we can eliminate a 0.5 teacher, and the 3rd grade in University Park that was created we will not need for next year due to enrollment. For Mosside Middle School, we are requesting an additional 5th grade teacher. That's due to the enrollment. This will allow us to have 10 5th grade, 10 6th grade teachers. It will help with their class size reduction, and also takes into factor the special education students, the influx that we have on that. With that, we are creating a .5 special education teacher at Moss-Side Middle School. So in essence, our half-time special education teacher in the elementary will move to full-time for Moss-Side Middle School. For Gateway Middle School, we are asking for an additional math teacher. This is to help with the increased numbers and also to provide additional support to the students at Gateway Middle School. We are also requesting a special education teacher. After we have looked at the schedules, we feel that due to the placements, we will be able to absorb .5 of world language in the middle school. We will be able to utilize that teacher, though, at the high school to help offset the needs that the high school needs. So it will just be a transition from middle school to high school. For the high school, after looking at the schedules, we feel that we can absorb the social studies and art teacher. And again, looking at the schedules, we feel that we would be able to absorb .5 of a world language teacher. All those three positions would be through attrition. No one would lose placements. They're all based on people who have retired or who will be on leave. Any questions for this slide? One full position, which we'll be able to offset with access funds. No other questions? Quick. For our service personnel, we're still continually looking at the students and our IEPs and our needs through that. We feel through looking at that and the placement with the staffing that we have that we will be able to absorb 14 part-time positions. No one would lose positions. They would just decrease in some of the hours that they currently have. For supplemental contracts, we've had requests for an additional media specialist and also a yearbook supplemental, so that gives a district change there of 12. And the final slide gives a brief overview of where we are as far as where our salary and benefits go. We currently are at $51,748,867. And that does include salary and all benefits for all the staff. Any questions? We will turn it over then to Mr. Schott.
Can we just load that, or is that wrong? Yeah, I'll just use this. All right, so we've seen the personnel changes. Now we'll see how some of that translates into the updated budget. Now again, I have all 57 slides here this evening. I will not be going over all 57 slides, so I'm just going to let everyone know right out of the gate, we won't be doing that. We'll be focusing in. Well, I promise we'll focus in on the most important changes in the areas that I feel are most important that we need to highlight to everyone involved. But again, I just want to make reference to the first slide, proposed final. This term, you'll be hearing this tonight. This is an Act 1 terminology, proposed final. Our next step for the budget is going to be approval of a proposed final budget. Again, just an Act 1 mechanical item that is not final by any means, even though it is proposed final. But again, I want to highlight that as we move forward through this evening. All right, we still have, and again, which I feel are the two most significant issues for 1920, again, is our net increase in debt service for expenditures for a series of 2016 general obligation bonds. Again, this was an expected increase to occur in 1920 per debt service payment schedule. And our other major items, so again, that's an expenditure. And then on the side of the revenues, we have net decrease in real estate assessed value continues. Again, unexpected magnitude of continued decline during the current 18-19 fiscal year that negatively impacts 1920 revenues and all future fiscal year revenues. So again, this slide has not changed. Oops, excuse me. But again, the most important takeaway from the slide is this number right here. $1,160,044 is the net increase after subsidies. That's the big hurdle we're trying to get over for next year. Likewise, as I previously mentioned, our net decrease in our assessed value almost $20 million. So essentially what that means is that when we set the budget back here with this number, we've paid out, and it's pretty close to this number, a loss of revenue of almost $391,000. That has happened. Now, of one bright spot, and I can't get into all the details on this, but I will mention that a significant successful assessment pill has almost concluded, which will yield an increase of over $20 million in assessed value, or a net equivalent of almost the same amount, $391,000. This number has been incorporated into the 1920 budget. But as you can see, one of the problems with this is that if this number doesn't decrease, this number is a windfall. That's the problem. Again, we're basically making ourselves whole with this successful, significant appeal. So again, at the end of the day, we're still down $391,000. One step forward, one step back. So again, just taking those two items together as we had before, just to show what those two equate to, almost $1,551,000. So that's a hurdle. And again, as we had coming out of the gate, that we've been able to, as you'll see in a further slide, eliminate a little bit of this, but it's still a big hurdle to try to fully clear. So again, this just shows taking these two items, what a maximum tax increase would equate to, and again, what we're still looking for. Again, this is just an initial snapshot. I thought it was still noteworthy to keep and for further discussion. So, where do we stand? Again, we've made significant progress, as we'll see in 2 slides from now. But again, projected proposed final total revenues for 1920, $76,737,000. That number.
Paul, I'm not sure I understand. Are you greatly recommending a tax increase?
You'll see, yes.
I was just kidding.
Yes.
Great big quotation.
It's in there.
Greatly recommended tax increase.
Yes. Now this number, and why I had to do, I had a number of ways of showing this. I thought this was the best presentation. I did not, this number, the 76,737, does not include any tax increase in order so I could show the deficit. And again, 2 slides from now it'll kind of be a little clearer. But that number does not include that. But what that number does include is an increase of $1,425,000 over the current 18-19 budgeted total revenues. Likewise for expenditures, $77,837,000, increase of $2,525,000 over the 18-19 budgeted total expenditures. So putting those numbers together on this slide, our increase of revenues, as we saw, $1,425,000, increase in expenditures, $2,525,000. Obviously, the increases do not equal. Therefore, we are looking at a $1.1 million deficit. And again, this is before utilization of a greatly recommended tax increase. Also to note is that in the revenues, there is $300,000 already included from fund balance for non-capital project items. If you recall previously, we approved a capital reserve fund budget of $1,504,000. Again, neutral in terms of this deficit for 1920, funding various projects. Previously, when we met back in March, we were looking at a deficit of $1,013,000. That was after a tax increase, which is in the amount of $1,209,162 at the March Budget and Finance Committee meeting. So when we met last time, this was our deficit, $2,222,162. So essentially, we've been able to close the gap by $1,122,162.
Another 2 months left.
That was a month.
Yeah.
Hey, we got 2 more months now.
You want me to comment?
In other words, keep grinding.
Let me just say, don't anyone hold their breath. To move this and again, this is net. This not only includes expenditure decreases. We've had some revenue bumps in there we've been able to make, and again, constantly looking at everything. I mean, anywhere and everywhere we can shave, anywhere and everywhere we can think of being more efficient in what we do, in terms of what can the impact be on the budget. That's what's gone into that number right there. Many, many, many hours of hard work collectively by the administrative team has gone into this decrease. And again, we're still continuing to work. We're still looking at expenditures. We're still looking at revenues. Some of our revenues are still coming in. We just concluded a month, so constantly taking a look and see what's coming in, how does it relate to the prior years, any other information that we know, in an attempt to try to reduce the remaining budget deficit. That's our game plan moving forward. As far as the state budget, the state Senate and House continue to work. Nothing has culminated from that process. So we're still waiting to see what's going to happen. And again, as a cost proposal, now I'm not going to go through this. This will be posted to the website. We're still waiting to see whether there's going to be any cyber charter school relief. As of right now, there's been no movement. Again, these slides have not changed, so you can look at this at your leisure. Likewise with our charter school tuition expenditures, $4,085,000. And the far column, that has not changed as well, based on what we've seen. No changes here. And no changes here as well. But again, if for some crazy reason, if the state is able to say later this week, approve a budget, maybe we would be able to change some of these numbers depending on what level of funding they provide. But again, not too optimistic that's going to happen. Again, nothing's changed here. Again, just the note, PA ranks 46th in the country for its share of education funding among the lowest in the nation. We have that working against us, as we all know. No changes on this slide. No changes here. Again, no immediate relief for pension reform, even though Act 5 of 2017 will be taking place. Our projected PSER rates, no changes there. PSER's expenditures, that has been slightly changed. Just to note, that's what we are looking at spending as of right now. Highest it's ever been, as you can see and look back, almost $11.2 million. And again, as we'll see in the other slides, we get reimbursed 50% of that from the Commonwealth. Again, no change there. Again, our compositions revenues, what that looks visually depicted. And we look at our major categories again, no changes local, state, and federal. And what our top 10 revenues look like. Again, we've had some changes in there as well, to probably at least half of those numbers that are there. And again, just visually depicting that. Likewise, top 10 expenditures. Again, many of those numbers have changed, directly related to staffing and other various adjustments along the way. And that's what it's visually depicted. And again, as we saw this evening with what Trish reviewed, 68% of the total 19-20 budget is staffing and benefits. And again, just the next two slides, again, we're constantly reviewing expenditures, revenues. Again, as any new information comes through, analyzing what is the effect, if anything, on the numbers we have here this evening. Again, I won't review some of the preliminary information. Again, just some basic information in terms of what millage is, some of the lowest, highest millage rates in the county, our neighboring district millage rates, where they currently are, who raised taxes for the current year, who didn't, and some other select Allegheny County real estate tax millage rates. Again, just some other neighboring districts thrown in just for comparison's sake. No changes there. And again, as previously mentioned, one of our significant issues again is continued real estate assessment issues, particularly in the realm of the appeals, not only the taxpayer appeals, but also the district appeals that we take. So again, it's the numbers like the stock market. The Allegheny County constantly posts, even though they've been a little slow this month to post. Usually every week, every 2 weeks, I take a look at that and adjust accordingly. But again, the number fluctuates up and down. And as we've seen, even though we are taking appeals and fighting appeals, we've lost almost $20 million of assessed value. And again, that's money that's gone. That's an issue for us. And again, just showing some historical information from the last assessment back in 2013, where we were at, where we are today, and that $20 million that I had referenced previously is included in that for all of our calculations. And then just visually depicting that as well, where you can really see the decline all the way to here. Again, that's less revenue each year that we have to work with. And again, no changes here. This just shows we're working with a 2.7% index, exactly what that equates to in terms of millage, 0.5364 mils. And that's basically setting the bar for how high it can go for 1920. And again, just another comparison slide, no changes on that. And again, just taking a look at that, what that maximum amount of revenue in relation to the net increase in debt service. And again, just showing that if even just taking the maximum compared to the net amount, it still doesn't leave very much money for anything else in the budget, essentially. And as we all know, everything increases. Not like it should. We have some increases in the budget. There are. Unfortunately, it's just not significant enough to make up for all of our losses and, most importantly, our increases in expenditures. This is just a historical slide.
Is there any, in light of this ongoing war between UPMC and Highmark, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they just built a $14 million building and their revenues are in the billions? Is there any way to get together with the borough or somebody to say that they need to contribute directly to the schools? Or ask them to do that?
They're nonprofit. They're really
I'm sorry?
They're nonprofit.
Sure they are.
We have no legal standing. We have had
Yeah,
talks.
but the borough made a deal with them to
talks
let
with
them build UPMC
Allegheny.
East and not tax them, so they built it. I mean, they've got deep pockets. You tell me that they're a nonprofit that pays their CEO over $6 million and they can't give us $500,000 each a year for the schools? It's ludicrous.
It would be nice, but unfortunately, that's not the reality. We don't have a payment. It's that's referred to as payment in lieu of taxes. We do not have any payments in lieu of taxes at all in our budget. And I think, if I recall, that facility is $34 million facility. We get zero from that facility.
The city's point is well made. That doesn't mean we can't assemble some kind of formal request.
You can always ask.
To both of the local hospitals.
Yeah, you can always ask.
Spend more money on attorneys than they're ready to win over. Let's face it, they've been fighting for 5 years.
So let's set that aside.
You know?
That has nothing to do with us. The general question is, should we go to these huge, wildly profitable nonprofits and say, you're part of our community, why don't you kick up a couple dollars like a good neighbor, which Pittsburgh has done with BMC in particular? We could certainly do that. We obviously have no legal standing, we have no leverage, we've got no reason to believe they would do it, but his point's well made. If we don't ask, Never.
Yeah.
So
Can always ask.
when are you going to do that, Paul?
Well, if you're talking an effort like that, that sounds like something that should come jointly from both entities, and maybe that might be something for maybe a upcoming intergovernmental committee meeting. That would be most appropriate in order to have, bless you, in order to have some of those discussions. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Thanks.
I apologize, I was in the middle of this battle too, personally. And, I remember when we were gonna spend $300,000 for the school board, and then we got, other funding, and that's basically what I'm proposing. I mean, you have, UPMC, and you have Highmark, and you have Cochrane, you have some big businesses in the borough of Monroe, and I know Cochrane has donated, I think, the bulletproof vest for the police.
That was Day.
Stuff. It's just, why don't we go out and ask all those big buck people if they'd be willing to contribute to the schools?
Because we asked them for contributions for scoreboards and turf and all those other things. We do.
Donation from-
We ask for donations all the time. from
Spencer
the community.
Toyota donated $24,000 for coffee shop. So we did go out and ask.
Yeah, we've had quite a few assessment appeals with them, so I wouldn't be looking for any money from them anytime soon.
They're happy with their assessment, so they're not doing it.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Is this on, is this recorded? Yeah, I'll talk to you after.
All right. So again, what this slide does, it looks at, and again, no changes on it other than to say this is what a maximum millage increase per resident based on median assessed values would look like at the 2.7% index, again, per year. Monroeville, $58.15. Pitcairn, $18.56 per year. And then the breakdown per month, what that would look like per month. Now, the next slide, which is a new slide, is looking at what the deficit would be, breaking that down. Again, making up a $1,100,000 deficit requires 0.4838 mils in order to get that accomplished. So again, the annual amount, $52.44 in Monroeville, $16.74 per year for Pitcairn, and then the adjusted what that amount breaks down to, divide that by 12, $4.37 per month for Monroeville, and $1.39 per month for Pitcairn. So again, we made progress to where we were before, which previously back in March was a full to the index increase, plus still being out over $1 million, to the point now where we are below what the revenue would be from a full tax increase to slightly below that. So again, we have made progress. And this has just happened within the last day or two. We actually did receive confirmation that there will be, for a 12th year, a distribution of $1,458,878.32 of gaming revenue. Again, 12th year that we will receive that, but unfortunately, as we've seen in the previous years, this is revenue neutral. So again, we receive the money, we pass it on through the Homestead Exclusion. And just to show, next slide, really hasn't changed very little since its inception. And again, these are all 12 years of the program. Again, you can see where we started at the very first allocation to where we are today. It's varied by hundreds of dollars. Not the windfall it was ever meant to be by any means. All those monies were diverted long ago by the state. And again,
That came from you directly.
all right. So again, we just received the information. There are 8,069 qualified homesteads. To note, 32 less than the 8,101 homesteads in 1819. I just received the CD. I have not even had a chance to even open it. What I will be doing and what will be presented, as we typically do in the month of June, is that the approval of the Homestead Exclusion will take place at the same time of the budget. So again, what I hope to have for our final meeting is number of homesteads broken down. I'll also calculate our exclusion amounts as well. But again, just for calculation purposes, as we've done before, we use the actual amount for 18-19 of the $180.35 as well. And again, just netting out to what the increase would be, so just to see what the net credit effect would be for Monroeville and also for Pitcairn, again, just to kind of conceptualize what those numbers mean. And again, we have updated projection of some of our ending total fund balance for the current 18-19 fiscal year. Looking at that, not a whole lot of changes other than, unfortunately, the unavailability of propane fuel credit for last calendar year, a loss of $90,000. Checking this week with my contact out in Kansas from Feral Gas to see if he's heard anything. Congress has not acted on retroactively approving a whole slew of not only just liquid propane gas, but of alternative fuels, alternative measures. A lot of entities like the district are losing out on revenues from the prior year. Again, that's not just us, but this is our piece of the pie, approximately $90,000. He's hopeful that 2019, they'll retroactively approve that, but again, we'll have to wait and see. So again, and I've never seen it go this late of all the years we've been applying for it, so I have to almost concur unless something drastic happens at some point in the year. Even if they give us a small window to file, once I find out I can file that day or the next day, I already have the form completed. And that's again assuming that they're not going to change the form in any manner in terms of the IRS. So again, we're waiting to see. So again, the net projected decrease, $2,569,000. And again, the lion's share of that, we had projected to utilize $1.8 million for our capital reserve fund transfers. And again, a combination of other things we've seen, prior year refunds, current year refunds, those continue. So that takes us down to projected ending of about $8.4 million. And in terms of the composition of that, taking that in relation to this was an updated item here. This amount to the current next year's budget, 10.75% fund balance. Again, total is recommended to be between 5 and 15%. This is just a component of fund balance, again, no changes there. Now moving, and again, this is composition of committed fund balance projected. I think I mentioned this before, but at some point, I would definitely like to bring forward a resolution to kind of adjust this list accordingly. Again, as you can see, this has been adjusted by board action going back to 2006, all the way up, and our last adjustment, or our last commitment occurred back in 2014. So again, there's a few things I'd like to clean up in here. This item, for instance, this was from an old project that we had money set aside. That project has concluded. I would recommend moving this back to the unassigned portion and also redesignating some of these other line items as well. And again, looking forward, as I mentioned previously, looking at taking out $1,504,000 for our capital reserve fund budget, additional $300,000 purchase new copiers, and again that would take it down to approximately $6.6 million, and again taking that in relation to next year's budget, 8.44%. Is that what we're projecting? And then again, just as an updated one, just for the last time Moody's did a review for us, the U.S. median for fund balance is 22%. So essentially taking 22% of this number, that's what Moody's is looking for when they look at our financials. And again, too high. Would never recommend that by any means, anywhere near there. But again, Moody's, S&P, they always try to put entities like us in a for-profit box, and we're not a for-profit entity, but that's how they look at us. They try to do that for when we go out to market with bonds. They try to have us, just like with our audit reports, they're in a prescribed manner. They force us to make them look like for-profit reports, and that's just for the public They're used to analyzing that, so it's just so it's consistency across the board, whether it's a business, whether it's a nonprofit, any type of government entity. That's just something typical that's done. Now, we had this last time. We actually have, as we all know, a couple items currently tabled on the agenda. Specifically, I'll reference those first. The truck was presented last month. That is currently tabled. Likewise, we have the, let me think. I might be thinking something else. Oh, the weight room. This is actually the updated number for that, $67,210. One item that actually was on this list the last time we met back in March, there was a work cart. At that time, we had an estimated number. This is actually we changed the type of cart with a better number than the original number. So again, cheaper number for that. We will be moving forward with that as well. And some of our other items, and again, all these items, again, just want to reference, these items originally, which total almost $529,000, were listed as expenditures in the 1920 budget. So if you would put these back in, that you would just add this amount to the $1.1 million. That's what it would directly increase the deficit. Just want to point that out. Well, no, a lot of these items that were listed last time were already cut out before we even met in March. Essentially, what we've added from the last time we met, we've added this auditorium upgrades, Chromebooks in an amount of $90,000 for the high school, and those were the two items. We had these other items listed last time. We got a little more specific. There are going to be some upcoming meetings to make a final determination whether it's going to be Chromebook or iPad. I think you guys have that scheduled coming up.
Yeah, we just met on today about
Okay, so we'll have some updates. The intent would be to bring exactly what that would be this month for approval. And again, taking current unexpended funds from various areas of the 18-19 budget in order to make these purchases. That's where these funds would come from. And again, to provide some budgetary relief. Yeah. Oh, yes. No. Always read the fine print. All right. In terms of our budget process, again, just as a quick review, did pass a not to exceed index resolution back in January, so that has been able to keep us on the timeline of following the pre-Act 1 timeline. So our next step in the process is going to occur at our study session meeting on May 14th. At that time, a proposed final budget will be adopted by the board. And again, that's just one of the hoops, as you've heard me refer to it in the past, of Act 1 we have to jump through. The other reason why we have to do this as an action item on the 14th is that our meeting in June is on the 18th. So unfortunately, if we wait till the subsequent Wednesday, which is the 22nd, we would not have 30 days in between these dates. So again, that's based on the scheduling of this date. That's the reason why we have to approve the proposed final this date. Again, it's proposed final. Just want to stress that enough. It does not officially set anything other than just declaring a proposed final budget. It requires us to display on a prescribed form from the Pennsylvania Department of Education, post on our website. We will do all that as we normally do. We will also be posting our Excel spreadsheets that tie back into all the numbers we've seen here today. That will be on the website as well. And again, the culmination of everything will happen on June 18th at the regular June board meeting in terms of adoption of the budget, setting of the millage rate, the homestead exclusion. All those items will be finalized on that date. And finally, our next and final our final public hearing will occur in the same room, Tuesday, June 4th at 6 p.m. And again, that is our final mandated meeting, at which time we will again share any applicable updates from tonight's meeting. and be able to present that information to everyone, all stakeholders. With that, open up to any questions.
Why are we buying the copiers instead of leasing them? What is the cost savings versus outright purchase versus lease?
One thing that I recommended for that, because we have some lease numbers in there. One of the problems with leases is that it's continual expenditures. So what I was looking to do with that, you have a one-time expenditure for maybe 3 or 5 years. So again, we get some budgetary relief by doing that. There are 2 leases that are currently in the budget that will be, I think we have, another year? I think 2021 will be the final year for those. But again, looking at that, likewise, even with the new copiers, looked at that from where it changed from how we've done it. Again, as you've heard me say before, trying to always be as strategic as possible with one-time expenditures. And we're actually going to buy what we need to buy up front in terms of new copiers, but what's going to be in 1920 and moving forward will just be the maintenance agreements on those. So again, even though we're showing some fund balance utilization next year, we have to show, so we show the fund balance coming out on the revenue side, we show the expenditure actually being made, they net to 0. So we'll essentially have, in terms of a net effect on next year's budget, will actually be a decrease from where we are now, paying our maintenance agreements on those copiers. So again, that'll give us next year and 4 more years until we have to address that issue again. So again, it's instead of leasing that and incurring greater costs moving forward, we're able to strategically utilize some fund balance and decrease our expenditures moving forward. And again, anytime we talk about fund balance, utilizing fund balance, like we saw the $1,504,000 for the capital projects, the only time you want to dip into fund balance, planned dip into fund balance, is for either one-time expenditures or expenditures that maybe don't occur for a period of years, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 30, 35, whatever the case may be for that. Where districts get into trouble is when they dip into fund balance for reoccurring expenditures. So for instance, let's use our scenario we have here this evening. We're out of balance by $1.1 million even. So if you take that $1.1 million out of fund balance and say, okay, it's done. Next year, when we start out doing the 2021 budget, we're already to negative $1.1 million before you look at any number, whether it's revenue or expenditures. We know we're in a deficit next year, 2021, $1.1 million. And it's like a snowball. You push it down the hill. It just grows and grows and grows. And if you did that, we'd probably be broke in 3 to 4 years. Some of our neighbors have done that. And that's where they are today. That's exactly how it happens. And again, being strategic in how you utilize fund balance. Again, strategically drawing from it, but likewise having it to rely on when the unexpected occurs. The unexpected occurs all the time. Revenues don't come in as planned. Certain expenditures come in greater. Emergencies occur. Whatever the case may be, you have to maintain a healthy fund balance to cover us for that. We have a healthy fund balance. And we have been able to take advantage of that healthy fund balance over the last several years. By doing some of our projects, we know that we have a lot of upgrades. We have done a lot of upgrades throughout the district. But it's amazing that we've been able to do that. We haven't had to borrow anything. So again, we've saved money there. We incurred no interest. We've been able to self-fund our projects. And having the capacity to do that is I just can't say enough about it. We have the ability to do that and take advantage of that ability.
Paul, do you have any reason to imagine that the next 1, 2, 3, 5 budget meeting won't sound exactly like this? Is there any reason, any way that we could, in good conscience, say to the people of the Gateway School District, there will be a day when we don't ask for more tax dollars from you?
It's very possible. I mean, I know when you look at, okay, and I know where you're coming from for that. Sure, the current year we did raise taxes. Now, when you look at even the current year, and let me just, if I can put my finger on it here real quick. Oops. Yeah, oh, wait. I think it's in here. Unfortunately, the last 2 years we've had particular issues that are, as I refer to, hurdles. They're very difficult to overcome. So things occur, and unfortunately, when you look at those expenditure, whether it's an expenditure increase, in this case, expenditure increases as a predominant item, you can't, one, find enough revenue to offset it. A lot of times it's impossible. And in terms of looking at expenditure reductions, you can only cut so much as well. And again, as we've seen this evening, we've cut a lot. But I want to also note, we have not cut programs. We have not affected the educational curriculum in any kind of a negative manner at all. That is the most important thing that everyone should take away from this evening. But getting back to what you mentioned for the current year, when we were in the same room last year, our two big items were our increases in our charter and cyber school tuition. We were looking at a $635,000 increase. Likewise, we had some outside placements that were $748,000. So we were looking at almost $1.4 million last year of things beyond our control that we had to deal with in the budget. So when you have something big like that, where you look at it and you're like, well, I can't say we're not going to pay it, we're just going to reduce it. We can't reduce it. It's almost impossible. So when you have something like that, when you look at your, I'll call them projected increases, revenues, et cetera, for that, it absorbs it right away. It's gone. So these, I don't want to say catastrophic, but these major fluctuations take away all of our increases. So when you have all that net out, it's a struggle. And in this case, part of the reason for the current year tax increase was to cover these. Now jump forward to today. We saw that on the slide. The debt service is coming back on. And again, when you look at the amount and where we are, we've been able to chip into it a little bit. It's not the full amount. You know, we're at $1,100,000 even, and it was over that amount, the net amount of that. That's something that, again, when we refinanced those bonds, we had some benefit from that. That some of that benefit was utilized in previous budgets that accounted for some of those years where we didn't have a tax increase. That's where some of that increase went. Unfortunately, that debt service is coming on. We still have 8.5 years left to pay on those bonds. Now, if this would have been the final year, final payments coming up on those bonds, I'd have been the first one to say we're going to take it from fund balance because it's a one-time utilization. They're gone, it's done, and we still maintain a healthy fund balance. Unfortunately, we're not at that situation with it. Now, looking ahead to 2021 and beyond, you know, again, we've had some issues come up. I can't definitively say we're not going to have a major issue coming up like we've seen in these 3 or 4 issues this year and last year. But let's say we don't have a significant issue come through. I would say, unless something else drastic happens, everything's staying the same, there's probably a pretty good chance. I'm hopeful to be able to somehow balance it without going to some type of extreme measures. But even again, when you look at everything else aside from the debt service coming on, essentially we've been able to either come up with cuts and or additional revenue to offset all those other increases. And that's pretty impressive, I think, to be able to do that.
And just touching on last year. Last year we sat in this room and it was essentially the same dire story, just with slightly different characters. And in June, we, as a board, went and voted and did increase taxes.
Correct.
Roughly the same amount.
Correct.
It was about a $1.2 million increase in revenue, correct?
Correct. Yes.
If we had voted differently, okay, now that's obviously the beginning of the budget.
Sure.
Okay, and it's projection over the year. Whenever you finalize that budget, how much would we have had to actually take out of fund balance? In other words, we added 1.2 million.
Correct.
How much do we add to fund balance at the end of that year?
We didn't add anything to fund balance. You're talking 17-18. 17-18, we did not add to fund balance. 17-18, and matter of fact, I know I have the slide. I can give you exact numbers. Let me see if I have it here. I know it's in my pile over there. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll just go off the top of my head with it. We had projected to utilize for 17-18 $3.8 million of fund balance for capital projects. We actually, the number that I recall in my head when it all netted out, as you heard me refer to, the dust settled on the 17-18 fiscal year, when all revenues are accounted for, all expenditures are accounted for, we ended up only pulling about $3,654,000 out of fund balance. So again, we still.
That was for 17-18.
That was for 17-18, yes.
We didn't raise taxes.
We didn't raise taxes.
For the year we actually raised taxes. I guess
Well, that's the current year. We won't know that for many months from now. That won't be till September. But even just knowing that portion of it, where again it came in less, but again the amazing thing to consider that year, and I think I might have said this last time, is that we actually absorbed, again there was continued decline in that as well. We absorbed the various refunds that we had to make for the mall property for 17-18. That was part of that as well. So again, it was one of those things where the ideal circumstances is that, and we had this happen because it helped to absorb that. Various revenues came in higher than projected because again we had various transfers and sales and things, a lot of one-time infusions of revenue we couldn't count on. You know, we had some deed transfers from some big sales that occurred. We also had, I want to say, 3 or 4 very large delinquent real estate tax payments that were made. There were hundreds of thousands of dollars that came in. That helped us significantly. So again, those are one and done types of things. You can't count on those things happening. Likewise, on the expenditure side of things for that year, we had various expenditures that came in significantly lower. So again, we were able to utilize that and net everything out. But even for the current year, looking at the $1.2 million you had referenced, we know that we've already lost $391,000 of that. It's gone. So that's already netted down. So it's frustrating, it's irritating, but even that amount, it's been reduced. I mean, those are monies that are gone. There's nothing we can do about that. If we could have maintained at zero from 18, 19, 19, 20, and then have, basically maintain that level of revenue and then have the other property for the extra $20 million, that would have been a windfall. That would have been something that would have positively affected us. So essentially taking the $1.1 million, you can almost knock $400,000 off of that, and now we're only at a $700,000 deficit. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But that's what we would be talking about right now. That would only be about $700,000. Any other questions, comments?
I have a brief question. On Ms. Lamb's last slide, I noticed that all the numbers were negative, but was the administration negative too, or was it positive? On your last slide?
That last slide was like administrator's dash.
So when you
and
had
then
the
a
pie
percentage.
chart?
Yeah, it just had
Can you
like
go
a
back? Can you
percentage.
put that up?
Is it up there?
Nope.
I
Just
think it
curious.
would've gone down.
I think it was just giving a percentage of what.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, like the dash was like a separator. Like administrator's dash, something percent.
No, the one after that.
The last one.
Is that a +9 for administration and
No, no,
negative
yeah.
for all the other ones?
It's
We
9%.
certainly didn't cut teachers by 73%.
No.
Oh, that's 9% of the total.
9% of the total salary. That's a
Yes.
breakdown per group.
All right.
I think somebody
Well,
here,
that's 9%
somebody here would have gone
of the
nuts
total
with that
salary.
bottom number if that was real.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn.
All right. If there's nothing else, thank you, everyone. We will see you here again on June 4th, 6 p.m.